Welcome to this community voice about careers in the flat agile organization. We've been looking very much forward to this opportunity, so thank you for voting us through. As agile practitioners, you probably know that to get the real benefits of agile, you need a flat, decentralized organization with reduced complexity and a lean decision process. Therefore, we see organizations tend to remove or at least downplay the hierarchical structures of their organization to install equality among team members, really taking that shared responsibility to improve team performance. However, career progress and achieving career targets is of real importance to many people. So this can have a negative impact, at least for some. So in this session, we'll cover some of our experiences on how organizations can support their people to have inspiring career development in the flat agile organization. So in this session, the flow will be as follows. We will start to just elaborate a little bit on the motivational challenge of the flat decentralized organization. Then we'll give a quick introduction to some of the theory. So what are the organizational levers for motivating people? We will then go on to talk about the practice. So we've grouped together 4 themes that we see organizations work with to overcome this. And we'll, of course, summarize in the end the best practices for ensuring motivating careers in the flat agile organization. But before we get started, let's just briefly introduce ourselves. So we both come from PA Consulting Group. We're working out of our Copenhagen-based office. My name is Helle Gundorf. I'm a consultant working with agile transformations across a number of different clients, both within public and private sector. My specialty area is focusing especially on the people aspects and the change management aspects of those agile transformations. And with me, I have
Tina Hjort Eilertsen, and I'm also part of the Agile capability team here in Copenhagen, where we are trying to combine our classic management consulting skills with a deep and specialized insight into agile ways of working. We are working with blue chip companies going agile, and my role is typically to support the senior management teams in overcoming their challenges and giving good advice on how to embark on the journey. Our research shows that 72% of all business leaders believe that the company's ability to respond rapidly to change is a key differentiator for the future. Of course, the COVID-19 crisis has really underlined this. We have seen a strong focus on cost cutting, on improving time to market, but also the ability to flex and pivot. We have seen the markets, the customers suddenly has changed the behaviors and changed demands and requirements towards the companies. And some of companies, they have simply, they need to rethink their entire product and portfolio capabilities in order to actually respond to client and customer needs. So the agile ways of working has really been a key theme for many executives, and we do see that the benefits really pays off if you do it in the right way. And the benefits are both for the organization as such, but also for the individuals. But of course, when going agile, it is a journey, and going from a classic hierarchy with a focus on different titles and jobs and classifications throughout the company to a more flat structure isn't that straightforward. So Helle and I have collected, based on best practices and what we see in the organizations where we are working on a daily basis, we have collected 4 major recommendations for how to keep everyone motivated and inspired in their agile journeys. So the motivational challenge of a decentralized organization, we typically see that a traditional career is moving up the career ladder with an incremental promotion, step for step. We are all, seeking, we're setting targets, and we are moving up the career ladder in terms of a steadily increasing income, power, status, and security. But that actually clashes with the Agile DNA. In the Agile career, we need to think outside the vertical silos and actually try to broaden out the way we look at the career and actually see how we can redefine the career as a series of rewarding lifelong learning experiences where we still feel challenged and see that we do progress towards new targets, but it doesn't have to be the traditional upward career ladder. So when you're changing your operating model and people's roles, you definitely need to focus on what drives motivation of people, what matters to the people in the organization.
Yes. So we promised just a little bit of theory, so here we go. So in terms of what motivates people, as you probably know, we can talk about the different extrinsic and intrinsic motivational factors. And what we see is, to summarize just a little bit, that the Agile organization actually challenges some of these traditional motivational factors, especially within the extrinsic area. So extrinsic motivation, that comes from the tangible rewards, the prestigious job title, the grading system that you move up in, it's the formal praise, it's the competitive pressure, etc. So as Tina mentioned, this is something that we then put out of action a little bit when we say that we want to go to a flatter, equal organization. So when we downplay at least the titles and the grading system in the organization, we take away some of the factors that actually motivate people, at least some people. The good thing is that Agile ways of working really fosters intrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation is when you do something for the sake of inner satisfaction. That can typically fall into 3 different categories. So we've got autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So autonomy is where you're able to decide your own tasks in terms of what you want to work on, with whom, how you want to do it. And that creates a lot of commitment and motivation. And the mastery, that's where it's psychologically satisfying to develop on something that you really enjoy. So you get that optimal level of challenge and you involve yourself. And the purpose is where you really understand the meaning of what it is you're working on. So you have that sort of insight of what you are contributing to.
And that could be, for example, if a company has a very meaningful purpose or vision and strategy that you are pursuing, and that could be go green or do something for the society, whatever, something that really has a meaningful impact on you as an employee.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Agile ways of working really foster intrinsic motivation. So as a bit of an exercise, Tina and I tried to map some of the different Agile practices against these 3 intrinsic motivational factors. So for instance, in terms of autonomy, we see that as the Agile teams are self-organizing based on empowered individuals, that really fosters and creates some good conditions for getting that autonomy in place, because the product owners and the Scrum Masters don't assign individual tasks to people, but rather people pull from the backlog what they want to work on, of course, based on a set of priorities. In terms of mastery, we see that, for instance, just having the IP iteration in the end of your program increment, we see that really is a tangible way of setting aside time to really develop your skill sets within an area. So this is one way to build on your mastery. Another thing is that on a daily basis, we work with challenging user stories, and we have retrospectives to really continuously improve ourselves and the way we work. So that really fosters mastery.
And regarding purpose, one thing that is really coming through in the Agile ways of working is that there is a clear line of sight throughout the organization. So even from task and user stories up until the overall vision and strategy of the company. So the benefit here is that the user story is connected to the feature, that is connected to the epic, that is connected to the strategic theme of the company. So for all individuals, there's a clear line of sight. They can see how things are linked together, and that again becomes meaningful, and it drives a purpose. They fulfilling an overall purpose, contributing to the bigger picture. That is also based on research, very a key thing in the way people are feeling job satisfaction and motivation.
So we can say that, of course, agile ways of working really foster a lot of motivation in people. And it is also one of the key drivers for organizations to embark on an agile transformation. But our point here is that if we want to have inspiring careers for our people in the organization, this can't stand alone, and we still need to cater for other career development needs.
Yes. And by doing that, we have seen different ways of handling this. And it, of course, really relates to where the companies are on maturity and on the agile journey. The more simple one, of course, is to separate roles and titles. So we have seen, for example, VPs of a company that were not too happy about taking on the role as an RTE because the role of an VP in that organizations were kind of linked to P&L responsibility, to the span of control, and the complexity of the job. So they were afraid of losing that prestige and the titles. And therefore, we simply had to work with the HR people to divide and separate the roles and the titles, and it makes it a lot easier, of course. And the good thing is that more, jobs can actually contain more roles, and thereby we can have a setup that actually works for the organization, but for the individual as well. But of course, the more mature companies are and the kind of more long-term horizon, of course, the ideal thing is to start looking into the career model and start adjusting it. Trying to see if you can make the model more flat by removing the hierarchy, removing senior versus junior titles, trying to see in general how you can look at the job classifications and the job bands in order to have fewer of those and making sure that the jobs are actually described in the agile according to the agile roles, and also making sure that the agile roles are given the seniority and the responsibility that they actually have. So for example, the Scrum Master role, which we often see is kind of downgraded a bit, really it's not. It is a leadership role, so why not put that content into the role and trying to make sure that it actually reflects the responsibility of that person without being related to a band or a hierarchy thing
or a span of control.
Exactly. So it's a little bit it's a bigger exercise to start working with the HR business partners and the HR organization, but it really pays off because that's where kind of we want to go with the more flat and decentralized organization. We do see many companies struggle because they try to go agile, but then they don't want to adjust the career model. So they try to work with a more flat organization, but if they keep the structures as is, nothing will really change in that respect. So it's a good advice from us, really trying to go in and do some changes, trying to reflect the agile DNA into the career model.
Another thing that you should look into is to provide development opportunities outside the primary team focus. Because one thing that we see across the board with the organizations that we work with is that when we go in and we say, look, now you're part of a cross-functional agile team, you're fully allocated to this team, then that sort of limits the development opportunities that people see, because they see that, well, if I'm fully allocated, then that is where I can develop myself. And of course, there are lots of development opportunities within the cross-functional agile team. I mean, that's a given. But I think it's important that you also remind people that there are still a lot of development opportunities outside your primary team focus. So one example is that you can encourage and reward people for taking an active role in a community of practice, because that is an opportunity to work across different teams, perhaps even across different arts, to develop your expertise within an area. You can also encourage and reward people to contribute to mentoring, buddying, developing others, and even training others across the different teams. So this is where you encourage people to really use their specialist expertise area, their I profile, to develop the T profiles and perhaps E profiles of others. So in one organization, we had an example of a group of really highly skilled people, so really experts within their field, which was a strategically important competency area for that organization. And they became extremely demotivated when we introduced agile ways of working. Because before they had a sort of special informal position where there were the experts that were pulled in last minute to firefight and fix problems. But with the shift to building quality and having stable cross-functional teams, they felt that they both lost the informal status of being the firefighters, the heroes of the organization, but also that they felt like they lost some of the really fun aspects of their work. So they resisted agile ways of working and just created a really bad energy in the organization. So what we did was, together with the leadership in the organization, to of course address the need for an attitude adjustment, but then also to give them that special responsibility of hiring and training a new group of employees to build on their specialist profile. So this was a really important capability area for the organization. And by giving those people who were initially demotivated that extra challenge of growing others, that was really what turned their mindset around and got them really on board with the agile ways of working. And it made a really huge difference for the organization as well. So that's one example of really letting people grow their own expertise and provide development opportunities outside the focus of the primary team.
Another way is to start rewarding, acknowledging the horizontal development. So not just going in the depth of the T, but also on the top of the T, where you expand your capabilities and your competencies more across into different areas. So this is more about the E, where we do see, people also try to explore new things, but also execution, where they actually take a role in getting things done and making sure that also pays off from an organization point of view, because this is pretty much around, what do you reward people for? What is people acknowledged for? And if that is more kind of exhibit, okay to do that and see how people can contribute with value end to end and deliver end to end, people will start to see that as a interesting career development as well. We actually had an example from an organization where there was a small team of people that were writing letters. That was what they did. It was a public institution where they had a lot of communication outside the organization. They came into an agile release train and started to say, okay, I'm going to spend 100% of my time here in the team, and can I really write letters all the time? No, they couldn't. So we had to look at, what opportunities do we have? And there was, we looked into, so what is your key strength? What are you contributing with? And that was, of course, communication. So we started to work with this team and to see, what other communicative skills can be applied, and what other communicative tasks do we need to do. And thereby they started actually to contribute with writing newsletters, contributing to the development of web pages, and a lot of other communicative tasks. And this team was really going through a journey, but they ended up with a lot of motivation and job satisfaction, because suddenly they felt that they could contribute in a much more interesting and a rewarding way to the company.
And one way we can even formalize this a little bit is to develop a new competency framework for the organization. So with one client, we worked very closely together with the HR organization to really look into their competency framework. So they came from a really sort of expertise-driven culture where that was the focus of all the development conversations they had as an employee with their manager. That was, how can I really deepen my expertise? What courses do I need to take to develop myself within my area? But then we provided a new supporting tool for the leaders to have a different kind of conversation to really broaden out what types of competencies we expect people to develop. So that also included, how do I want to develop my skills within collaboration, communication? How do we work with exploration and execution? And how can I grow my career in those areas? So that really helped the leaders to change that conversation in a very structured way.
Yeah, and as you can see from the quote, it's not that easy just to make testers code and coders test. It needs, some support as well. But this is where we really see the agile ways of working paying off, when we have really good examples of caseworkers that suddenly contribute to requirements, but also testers doing requirements and vice versa. So that is where people try to expand their capabilities and working more on the horizontal development. That is quite rewarding as well, because suddenly you feel you can do and contribute to something bigger than what you normally do.
So obviously, getting this right is a leadership task, because changing the band structure and changing the tools that we use in our conversations, that can't stand alone. Really getting this right requires good agile leadership. And it provides proper guidance. So if we want people to develop their careers in an agile organization, we of course need to provide them with the coaching, the clear priorities and direction, so that they can align their career development to support the company's goal as well. And we need to provide them with the proper guardrails to work within. So one organization that we work with, we saw actually the leaders wanting to really do this so extreme that they perhaps went a little bit overboard. So they came from a very sort of micromanagement, command and control type of culture. And then when we explained agile leadership, they sort of went a little bit overboard and say, well, now we need to empower the teams to make all the decisions themselves. So bye-bye teams. But then that resulted in a complete paralysis, of course, among the employees, because coming from an organization where decisions were made only in the leadership forum, then the employees didn't have the knowledge of what they need to factor into these decisions. They didn't have the direction and the guardrails to help them. So of course that resulted in no decisions being made and a lot of frustration among the employees. So of course the leadership team needed to provide the coaching, etc. So we work with them to ensure this by establishing a community of practice for agile leadership, where they could then develop their leadership practices together and share the knowledge of how to do this the best way. So that helped the leadership team to really continuously improve on their agile leadership practices.
Yeah. You cannot just empower, but say, okay, now you're hereby empowered to do things, and then leadership leaves and becomes completely invisible. They need to be there to coach and guide and frame the task and set the directions. And of course to follow up and support the teams, and that's quite important.
Exactly. And in terms of following up, we see that empowering through feedback is also really, really key. So of course, in the traditional career model, where it's really obvious to everyone that on a regular basis you can then be promoted to senior whatever, that is a sort of clear check mark. I've progressed, that's nice. But when we then downplay that, or perhaps even remove it, then it's just even more important that we have those good feedback loops in place. So of course, there's the feedback on an ongoing basis in the team with the Scrum Master, etc. But the line manager is also responsible for providing that feedback in terms of long-term career progression. So that you do have a conversation with your people to really clarify where are you going with your career and what have we achieved so far, to really get that sense of progress. So we really see that those titles and hierarchy, they won't hold back these empowered employees. People really tend to grow with the responsibility of empowerment and feedback.
Yeah. So to summarize, we do see 4 best practices for ensuring motivation and inspirational careers in agile organizations. Don't ignore money, power, and titles. For some people, it matters. And for sure, the career ladder is there, but maybe we should look at the career ladder in a way where it's not just about going upwards, but actually trying to look horizontal as well, and try to see how you can create challenging and actually also demanding jobs and tasks for the organization, which actually provides them with a lot of great experiences, but not just going upwards. Another thing, of course, is to let the people grow expertise outside the team, so they can still use their expertise but apply it in a different way, working with other people to grow them and actually see themselves as an expert who can train others to become experts as well. Rewarding people for broadening their capabilities, trying to really broaden out the capabilities in a way where people contribute on a more horizontal dimension, with supporting exploration, execution of highly strategic tasks or things that where they can actually take on and succeed as a team, because the team succeeds and not the individual. And last but not least, empower through career development and guidance. It is important that people feel that there's support behind them and that they are acknowledged in the new way and according to the Agile values and principles. So here it's extremely important that the organization actually refine and redefine their career models, so people are acknowledged for the new ways of working and not just being rewarded for the old-fashioned and more traditional career elements, because then there will be a clash and it will be hard to see the benefits pay off. So that's our 4 recommendations for you going into an Agile journey. So moving towards a flat Agile structure might have a negative impact, at least for some people, but with ingenuity, close attention, and taking care of the HR-related perspectives, it's actually possible to limit the extent to which that happens. So you need to work with the leadership teams, to work with the people, involve HR and the HR business partner in looking into the career model and trying to see how you can find creative ways for making people feel that they are achieving new targets, that they are progressing, that they are developing themselves without climbing the traditional career ladder. So motivation of any sort is, of course, important in the organizations, no matter whether it's Agile or non-Agile, but it is to find the right balance between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation factors in order to go through a successful transition into Agile. Because once you're truly Agile, motivation will actually take care of itself.
And with that said, I think just a big thank you for listening in to our community voice. We are looking forward to getting your responses and feedback on this, of course. So thank you for spending the time with us in this.
And in case you have a bit more time, you are also welcome to jump into our LinkedIn profile, and the full article will be available for you in case you want to give it a read. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.